Today, I watched, hands down, the most craziest game ever. I have been watching football since 2012, 13 years since I was 7 years old. I'm 20 years old now. And I don't think that I have had my emotions be so up and down through this game. And especially as a Denver Broncos fan. And even till now, it is 10:30 p.m. Mountain Time at the time that I'm recording this episode. This game ended back at 5 o'clock, and I am still just in awe of it all. And I think that the New York Giants and Denver Broncos, I'm putting it down now. I believe that today they played the game of the year for the 2025-2026 season. I honestly don't know how you could beat this game. And it is purely the definition of a game of two halves. It's more a definition of a game of the first three quarters versus the fourth quarter. I mean, look at that score breakdown right there. The Broncos go absolutely scoreless through the first three quarters and then score 33 points to come back and beat the New York Giants. And you all know I'm a Broncos fan on this channel. You guys have been watching. If you guys have been sticking with the channel for a while, you guys know that I support and love my Denver Broncos. And it's been difficult to be a Broncos fan for the last 10 years. Last year was really the only big glimmer of hope since our Super Bowl win back in 2015. I have been through 3 different head coaches. I've been through a plethora of different quarterbacks. I have seen great young players come in, leave, good signings come in, leave, not work out. I've been through it all. And man, there are just so many mixed emotions about this game. Because don't get me wrong, this is a great win for the Denver Broncos. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. This is a great win for them, but there are so many negatives that happened within this game. So let's go ahead and get into this. I'm not even going to bother with an intro. That was my intro. We'll go ahead and mention the social media and whatnot at the end of the video. But the first thing I want to do when talking about this game is I want to give a bunch of credit to Jackson Dart and the New York Giants. I truly believe that the New York Giants have finally flipped the page. I understand that they're 2-5, but really I don't think that their record defines them whatsoever. This team, which by the way is playing without their top target, their best receiver in Malik Neighbors, who, by the way, played the whole second half virtually without their star safety in Javon Holland, who got injured in that second half. They came out to play today against a team of the Denver Broncos who is just coming off a win against the defending Super Bowl champions in the Philadelphia Eagles, against a team that is still going through the transition of, getting used to their new rookie quarterback in Jackson Dart, and they put the hurt on Denver in the first 3 quarters. Don't get me wrong, they didn't do anything exceptional. They only put up 19 points, but Jackson Dart, man, I got to give my credit to that dude. I got to apologize to that man because he's been playing well. I got to give him his props, and I didn't think that he was worth, a first-round pick, even being a late or first-round pick. I didn't think that he was going to translate to the NFL, being out of what is just an amateur offense, an amateur system with Lane Kiffin over in Ole Miss, and he has done a fantastic job. He has shown real heart, and he has shown the ability to just make big-time plays over and over again. And that was showcased late in the fourth quarter on the Giants' final drive when they get to the goal line, and he rolls out with a run off of a fumbled handoff and is able to stretch out and score a touchdown. I mean, he is really leading this team, and he is allowing them to compete with some of the most talented teams in the year. He put up 32 points against the best defense in the NFL, against a defense who last week against the New York Jets scored themselves 9 total sacks, who held the New York Jets to negative passing yards. And he came out here and he put up 32 points without really making a mistake outside of the one mistake that he had late in the fourth quarter with that interception to Justin Shenault. He is doing a fantastic job. The Giants' defense, like I said, despite them missing some key players, despite them not really having much of a very talented secondary outside of Javon Holland, it played well as well. They stuffed the Broncos' offense, especially their running game, throughout that first half. They did a really, really great job. They made Bo Nix uncomfortable. There wasn't a lot of open options and ability for Denver's offense to really get going. Part of that was down to what they were doing, and again, we'll get down to that. But the pass rush was getting there as well. They played a really, really solid game. So I wanted to give credit to them because I know that majority of this episode is going to be about the Denver Broncos because we have a lot to talk about, especially being a Broncos fan. The first thing that I want to do for the Denver Broncos is I want to praise this win. This was a great win. It was a historic win. It was the only time that the team had came out to score 33 points within the fourth quarter and come back to win after being shut out. This is an important win for Denver, and this win needs to be celebrated. But I also think that there are real concerns, real negatives, and should be some real worries, especially if you are a Broncos fan coming out of this game. Now, again, it was important, and it wasn't necessarily an important game to win. It was an important game not to lose because let's just say it how it is. As good as the Giants have been playing over the past couple of weeks, as good as the Giants played through through all four quarters, to be honest, in this game, they are not a great football team. They are not a Super Bowl worthy or playoff worthy football team right now. They have good talent and they have guys that are making big time plays, like I mentioned, like Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo and whatnot, but they are not a playoff worthy football team. And you come off of a win against the Philadelphia Eagles and you are scoreless throughout the first three quarters. That is inexcusable against a team that, again, doesn't have that much higher prestige. And this is now the second week in a row where the offense has started out inexcusably slow throughout the first couple of quarters. And last week even, they were slow throughout the entire game. They scored 13 total points in last week's games against the New York Jets and relied heavily on their defense. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to rely on your defense, especially when that is at this point the more talented side of the ball. But at a certain point, you have to be able to put points on the board. That 2015 team that won Super Bowl 50, as bad as that offense was that year, and you can go back and look at the statistics, especially from Peyton Manning in his final year, as much as they relied on that defense to make big-time plays, they still were able to show up in big moments and put points up on the board. And the fact of the matter is that there are so many negatives. Negative one, Sean Payton's play calling. I think that there needs to be a serious discussion. And it hurts me because I have been one of the guys that through the first half of the season has been defending Sean Payton a ton. I didn't believe that he needed to give up the play calling because I knew that he always gets off to slow starts to start off the season. That September and the beginning of October are not great for him whatsoever. And I know the resume that he has, and I know that he's a Hall of Fame coach, and I know that he's led top offenses, and I know that he's won a Super Bowl. And I just didn't want to come to believe that I wanted the man to relinquish play calling duties because there are moments in the game where he calls really great plays. But again, the offense started off slow. There has been a lot of terrible, terrible play calling within the last two games. Two big highlights. Last week, running a fullback dive on 3rd and 10. And this week, throwing the ball 3 straight times when they were in their red zone. Their first real opportunity to score, I believe it was in the second quarter. And throwing the ball 3 straight times and ending it off with a 4th and goal play where he runs a wide receiver screen that just gets absolutely blown up. And you just don't understand what he is doing. You don't understand why every single goal line play is a play action rollout to the right side that he does every single time. And don't get me wrong, it works, for majority of the time, but it's starting to become predictable. He's starting to roll out and get Bo Nix a little bit too mobile than I believe that he should be. And I think that at this moment, it would be in the best interest for him to give up play calling duties. I know a lot of people have been calling for Davis Webb, with him being our quarterback coach, clearly having a very, very close relationship with Bo Nix, as Nix goes straight. He doesn't go straight to Sean Payton when he gets to the sideline. He goes straight to Davis Webb, and they talk it over all throughout the game. Davis Webb also being our pass calling coordinator or pass calling assistant or whatever his title is. maybe it's time to give him the reins, because I think that is the only realistic way that things will change play calling wise. If you hand the reins over to Joe Lombardi, I think we're going to see a very similar Sean Payton type of playbook. So I don't want to see Joe Lombardi. If there is a change, it would have to be Davis Webb. Now, how likely is that to happen? Probably not very likely. Sean Payton has a lot of pride, especially when it comes to his offensive play calling, to his offensive game. And especially with the fact that the Broncos are still in a big-time winning position at 5-2. You know, they're not in a bad way. Yes, they've had some bad performances offensively, but they're still 3 games over 500. I think Sean's going to point to it and say, look, we've won these games, and we've won it through my coaching and the way that I lead the team, which I have to commend him for. And I want to get this right. Even if he were to give up play calling duties, I think that he still would be a tremendous head coach. I think that he's done a great job to establish culture here in the locker room with Denver. I think that he is a great locker room manager. I think that he's a great game manager, as he managed the game very, very well with the only three timeouts that he had within that second half, to be able to give Denver enough time within each possession to go out and score, to give them the necessary points. So I think he manages the game tremendously well, and he would obviously have the final approval on what plays are being called. But I think that the play calling at this point has just gotten a little bit out of hand, and it's very, very inconsistent. I understand that at times he really wants to get the running game going, but I think that he forces it a little bit too much. Sometimes he maybe passes it a little bit too much. So I think that his balance is off a little bit too many times. And there just doesn't seem to be a lot of confidence, and there seems to be a predictability over his play calling, and just overall just randomness when it comes to his calling plays, especially on crucial downs like 3rd and goal, 4th and goal, and having to pick up long, much needed 3rd down and 4th down plays. That wasn't the only negative. Negative 2 was Bo Nix, and I'm going to highlight the positives following these negatives as well, and I'm going to highlight Bo Nix and the game that he had in that 4th quarter. But Bo Nix, he missed a lot of throws today. He was not perfect whatsoever. He wasn't good throughout those first 3 quarters. I defended him last week against the Jets. I felt that he played all right. I just thought that his weapons let him down a little bit. There were a couple of drops. Troy Franklin had that fumble on the first possession on that first drive against the Jets. J.K. Dobbins wasn't running the ball as well as he was in the previous week, where he clinched 100 yards. But Bo didn't play well this week. He played well last week. He did not play this well this week. And he continues to miss big-time throws and big-time plays down the field. There were probably 3 or 4 today that he missed once again. 2 or 3 of them being ones that would 100% have been touchdowns. And hey, man, I'm sitting there. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, when are we going to hit those, right? When are we going to hit those? And that, going back to the Sean Payton thing, and I apologize that I'm bouncing around, I'm here complaining about Sean Payton's play calling, but the times where Sean Payton has good play calls and we're getting open receivers down the field, or we're allowing receivers to get a step on guys and getting separation, we're missing them. And so it goes both ways. Yes, is Sean not calling the game great? No, not by any stretch. But I also think that Bo needs to perform better. And I understand that there are other variables to that as well. I don't think that the offensive line has been as great as they were last year. I know that they're dealing with some injuries on the offensive line. They missed Mike McGlinchey for a couple of plays. They're without the left guard in Ben Powers for this game, who's out for the next couple of games. The running game wasn't great, despite J.K. Dobbins having a solid day. Especially within that 4th quarter as well, and ending it off with 80-plus yards. The running game wasn't good to start, so I understand that there are a lot of variables that limit his ability to be successful. But you have to make the winning plays. You have to make the scoring plays. And if he makes those scoring plays, you know, the Broncos don't even need that comeback. And that's really the basis of all of these throughout this, is that Denver, it's great to see them winning the close games that they didn't last year, but they are playing close games that they don't need to be in. They are giving up 20-point leads against the LA Chargers. They are scoring 13 points against a Jet team that is 0-7. They're having to score 33 points within the 4th quarter against a Giants team that is not playoff worthy. They should be winning these games comfortably, despite them being 5-2, despite them being, I believe now this makes them the 2nd seed in the AFC, despite them being at the top of the AFC West at this moment. they need to be stretching these games and their margins a lot further. And one of the reasons why that is the third negative on this list. And that's the fact that, once again, going back, the New York Giants scored 32 points today. The defense played pretty bad. And I understand that they're not going to play amazing every single week, and that last week was a historic performance by them. And I understand also that they're not going to get 9 total sacks every single week, but I don't think that they played well today by any stretch. And this is now the second or third game where they have not played particularly well. I thought that the Colts game, they didn't play particularly well. I thought the Chargers game, they looked a little bit shaky. Then they were able to rebound, obviously, the Bengals and then the Jets. And then this game, they didn't play well as either. There was a lot of miscommunication. There was a lot of people who were missing coverages. Alex Singleton got burned a lot on coverages today. And he was the main one who led up a lot of big-time throws down the field. Daniel Bellinger had the best game of his career because Alex Singleton lost him 2 or 3 times within coverage, and he was becoming wide open. So there were a lot of missed coverages. There was a lot of miscommunication. There was a lot of pass interference calls, and that is the final negative that I also have, and this ties in with defense, is the penalties. The penalties have been atrocious. I'm going to scroll down here and look at this. 12 penalties for 127 yards. The Broncos are the worst team in the league at this moment when it comes to penalties. They are playing undisciplined and sloppy football. And this comes down, once again, I know that a lot of people want to blame it on the players, and that is part of it, but it is also coaching. This is coaching. Penalties are coaching as well. And when you're seeing some of these habits that the Denver Broncos are having, mostly within the secondary, where they are getting burnt off of coverage, and the way that they're dealing with it is that they're chasing after guys and holding onto their jersey and hitting them in the helmet and throwing their arms all over the place. Those are bad habits that are developed probably through practice. And I'm not sure what Sean Payton is doing, what he is seeing, what he is pointing out. The offsides calls and the false starts, those are big time too. And those are something that likely happen within practice. And as coaches, you need to begin to notice and begin to fix. You can have a game with an enormous amount of penalties here and there. But when you're consistently having double-digit penalties every single game and you're giving up 127 total yards, that is the big issue. And once again, you cannot continue to rely on the defensive line going out and getting 9 sacks because they didn't today. And this secondary, unfortunately, has not performed as well as we believed that they were going to. Riley Moss getting burnt a lot, especially on deep passes. He got torched a lot by Wan'Dale Robinson today. Pat Surtain had a pass interference call, I believe. Jahdae Barron had a pass interference call. Him and Jaquan McMillan are getting absolutely toasted off of the line of scrimmage when they're playing press coverage within the slot, which is supposed to be their role because they're both smaller, much faster guys, and they're having a lot of issue in coverage. I still believe that we need to put Chris Abrams-Duran at quarterback, but that's a discussion for another day. But those habits need to go away, and you need to do a better job at going out and limiting these penalties. Now, some of them I don't mind. One of them that I didn't mind was the Sean Payton flag at the end of the game. I bet that Sean Payton is going to get a lot of criticism for what he did going onto the field and angering the refs and throwing that penalty, and it gets them a little bit closer. But I'm not mad at it. There's two reasons for that. Real quick, let me explain. Number one is the Giants were going to relatively be close to the goal line either way, with the penalty or without. They probably gained like a total of like 5 or 10 yards with that Sean Payton penalty because they had the Riley Moss pass interference beforehand. Number two, I love the fact to see that Sean Payton is standing up for his guys, and I like to see that he is standing up for them, that it seems like he has a real connection with his squad. That is something that I do like to see out of my head coach, and seeing them have that passion and going out and wanting to defend Riley Moss, who in my opinion got a little bit shafted on that call. I didn't think that was really a great call by the referees. I didn't think that it was realistically pass interference, but seeing him go out there and defend his players, I love to see that, and I want to continue to see that from him, and I don't blame him whatsoever for that penalty. So that was my negatives, and there was a lot, and I just watched the Sean Payton interview, post-game press conference. I just watched the Bo Nix post-game press conference. They both had mentioned that there's going to be a lot to talk about, and the thing that that made me even more mad about these negatives is I'm sitting back here and I'm thinking, guys, this is Demaryius Thomas's day. This is Demaryius Thomas getting inducted into the Ring of Honor. This is the time the Super Bowl 50 team is in attendance. It is a sold-out arena. Some fans left before the fourth quarter, which I felt really, really bad for those fans. And you're getting shut out, and you're having all of these negatives, not to really go off track and go off on a tangent, but that was a big one as well. And you know, I'd love to say that I think that we had a little bit of Demaryius Thomas magic in the building. It reminded me a lot of that playoff game back in 2012 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he breaks off for a 70-yard touchdown on the first play of overtime from a pass from Tim Tebow against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think we had a little bit of DT in the building today, and I think that he helped boost the Broncos' spirits a little bit, which I love to see. So that was something that I was definitely worried about, and I was disappointed about. But I'm glad that they were able to pull through and get a win for those guys, and for Demaryius Thomas and for his parents that were there. So a little bit of a tangent there, but it wasn't all negatives, and I don't want this to see like I'm being a negative Nelly, because there was also a lot of highlights from this game, and specifically a lot of highlighted players that I want to look at throughout this game. The first one is Bo Nix. I know I just criticized him for his missed throws, but he played one heck of a fourth quarter, and he continues to show up big time in these very high-pressured moments. We saw it last year, especially in that Cincinnati Bengals game when he was able to roll out to his right and throw a dart down the field to Marvin Mims in the back of the end zone to be able to tie that ball game up. That Monday Night Football game against the Cleveland Browns, where he traded scoring possessions back and forth with Jameis Winston, that was a big-time one as well. He played great today in that fourth quarter. He showed off his mobility. He showed off his legs. He led the team very, very well. He made some big-time throws, especially in that last possession with 30 seconds to go and you having to get your guys into field goal range and you have no timeouts. To be able to lead a team down there in just your second year, to be able to execute on that, back shoulder pass to Courtland Sutton on the left sideline with 11 seconds to go, which they said in their post-game press conference that they had not rehearsed prior to that game in live action. To have that throw down the middle of the field with 3 or 4 giants surrounding Marvin Mims and to be able to complete that, it continues to show me. I know that there's a lot of criticism against Bo Nix, and I have been critical of him as well, but it still begins to show me that the Denver Broncos still have their franchise quarterback, and he did a great job today. And he still ended off with 265 passing yards. That's the Giants, 2 total touchdowns and 2 total rushing touchdowns, and over 300, overall total yards overall. So he played a great, great game today. Shout out to him. Justin Strnad, he had a big, big time game today. He is the sub linebacker for the Denver Broncos. I truly believe that his interception was the turning point of this game. I think that's what gave Denver a really, really big boost. And without that big time play that he made, that interception, this comeback probably doesn't happen, because, I continue to say it as the Broncos were continuing to score, defense, somebody needs to make a play. Somebody needs to make a play, because we just needed one possession that gave us more time to go down and score the ball more, because time was against us at that point. And so we needed to stop a Giants possession short, and I knew through that was obviously going to be a turnover. And Shanad's in perfect position. He makes a big-time interception. He's able to get a good, solid 10 to 15-yard return, and it puts us in perfect scoring position to go out and score another touchdown. Man, that was a big step up from there. Marvin Mims, he was a big highlight for the Denver Broncos today. And I love to see it, because I think that has been something that Denver has been missing and that we desperately, desperately need, is somebody who is the complete opposite of Courtland Sutton and who can play opposite of him, who is not a tall physical receiver, but is a much smaller, quicker receiver who can not only make plays in the short game on wide receiver screens, but can also, make big time plays down the field as well. And I think that he did that tremendously. His, back shoulder catch himself on that right sideline in that first or second scoring drive for the Denver Broncos, that was massive. And for him to make that play, his catch in the middle of the field was big time. He has shown to be one of the most reliable catching hands on the team so far this season. And so I think that he has definitely established himself as, if not the number 2 wide receiver to be able to play on the outside, definitely the slot guy that can go out there and make you big-time plays when it matters and make big-time catches. And he has done it time and time again. I just previously mentioned his Bengals catch from last year that he had. Dre Greenlaw, I'm very, very excited to finally talk about, because he was my favorite signing of this year's offseason for the Denver Broncos. And I thought that he was going to have the biggest impact, especially in run support. And this was his debut for Denver. I love to see him out there. I love to see him playing. And he was already immediately making a big time impact. And I like to see the fact that Sean Payton was, slowly working him in. He didn't play the whole time on the defensive end. They did sub him out a lot to keep Justin Strnad in the game. But he was a big time help. And especially within that first half, helped stop Cam Scatterboo on some very, very important plays. And so I'm going to be very, very excited to continue to see his role evolve as he continues to get healthier and gets himself used to this Vance Joseph defense. But it was really, really great to see him in there and be making plays on the defensive end. And I think that he is going to be the difference and is going to be able to skyrocket this defense to even bigger heights. Talanoa Hufanga. Man, that guy has quickly turned into, I think, my favorite player on the squad. The dude is just a beast. I remember growing up and watching Troy Polamalu myself and always wanting to have a guy like that on our team. And we have him. We have him now in Talanoa Hufanga, a guy who is amazing in run support, who can get to the backfield very, very quickly, especially off of safety blitzes. But he is also so great in coverage. He's been very, very explosive this season. And don't get me wrong, there are some moments where I'm a little bit frustrated, and he does make, a little bit of very quick, maybe not so great decisions, like unfortunately knocking out his teammate Brandon Jones at the end of the game on that final Giants drive to stop that deep pass by Jackson Dart. Maybe that wasn't the smartest, especially to hurt your teammate, but he made the play. He got there, and he's just everywhere. He's making an impact almost every single play. He's everywhere. He has such high energy to him. He wants to be involved in every single play. And, man, that dude has quickly turned into my favorite player on this team. So, with that out of the way, with praising the Giants, with the positives for Denver, with the negatives for Denver, the big question is, what is next for Denver? So, like I said, they are 5-2. They are second right now within the AFC. And I do think that they have 2 winnable games ahead of them still. They have 2 Texas teams back to back. They have the Dallas Cowboys at home next week, and then they follow it up with traveling to Houston to face off against the Texans. 2 teams that I think are vulnerable and that you can take advantage of and that you can beat. But also, if you start out very, very slow like you did today against the Giants, you will get blown out against. And that is the important thing to know, is that when the Broncos begin to face better teams, they're not going to be able to continue to do this. The Dallas Cowboys absolutely washed away the Washington Commanders today. The defense looked the best that I had seen them all year. We're actually getting stops against the Commanders offense, who was heavily injured, so we do have to take that into consideration. Even in the second half, virtually played the entire second half without Jaden Daniels within that. But Dak Prescott is playing an MVP season. Javonte Williams returning back to Denver. He looks like a new man within that Cowboys offense. That offensive line is really solid. They just got CeeDee Lamb back this week. George Pickens has been having an amazing season for them. Then, like I said, the defense played the best that they have all year. That is a much more talented team there. That is a more well-coached team with Brian Schottenheimer behind the sticks that could definitely come in and blow you out even at home at Mile High if you decide to start off slow. And then Houston has always been a very, very difficult place to play on the road. They have a lot of very talented defenders, Will Anderson Jr. and Derek Stingley being the big-time highlights. I do believe that they have a very, very weak offense. They haven't found a way to really fully evolve their running game, especially with them missing Joe Mixon, and they haven't really found their number one running back between Willie Marks and Nick Chubb. There's obviously frustrations with C.J. Stroud and the new offensive coordinator. They're not really incorporating their weapons all as well as I think that they could be. So there's definitely room for them in Houston. But again, Houston, they just blew out Baltimore, who, yes, I know aren't the greatest of teams, especially with them missing their starting quarterback in Lamar Jackson. But they just blew out Baltimore. That's not a team that you can take lightly as well. So winnable games for Denver ahead, but they need to be focused. They need to clean up some of these mistakes, and the offense needs to start faster. And then you start to get into division play, and you still have some really, really tough teams ahead. You have the Chiefs, you have the Chargers, you have the Packers. Raiders, I'm not really too worried about. If the Commanders can get healthy, you're going to have the Commanders in a couple weeks. And that is the question for the Broncos. They are 5-2. They are beginning to win close games. They're making amazing comebacks late within the game. They are making big-time plays under pressure. But when you go up against the Bills, when you go up against the Chiefs, when you go up against the Ravens who are fully healthy, when you go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers who are playing well right now, when Joe Burrow comes back and you face a fully healthy Cincinnati team, when you face off against the New England Patriots who are playing good right now with Drake May and Mike Vrabel, can you execute? Can you play a lot better? Can you beat those teams? And can you get rid of the sloppiness that's going to be able to get you competitive into those games? That is the big time question for Denver, and that is what they're going to have to answer for me over the next 8+ weeks or so. But nonetheless, I'm still super happy as a Broncos fan that we got this win. A lot more to improve on, but it was an amazing day. And like I said, I'm just glad that we got the win because it was Demaryius Thomas's day, because we had the Super Bowl legends in the building. It was great to see. So that's all that I have for you guys today on this episode. Let me know what you guys think, what you thought about this game. What are the big improvements that you want to see out of the Denver Broncos? Where do you believe that they really rank within what is a very, very talented AFC? What is a very talented AFC West division right now? And how far do you think that this game could go? And answer some of my questions on some of the negatives that I have. Do you think that Sean Payton should give up his play calling? How do you think that Bo Nix can continue to improve? How do you think that this defense can become better, especially within the coverage game within that secondary? Answer all of those down below, as well as subscribing to the channel, leaving a like, and sharing with your friends. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those ads are going to be down below in the description. We're on all those social medias. You'll get to see my latest reaction to breaking news from the NBA, the NFL, and combat sports. And you will never miss for whenever the podcast decides to upload an episode. And without further ado, guys, that is all that I have for you guys today. I will see you guys on the next one. Have a great start to your week, and peace.